We will complete our performer project in this video by editing the process workflow. So open the process workflow from the framework folder. In this workflow, we will start with a cleanup sequence to ensure no existing report folder exists. It is similar to what we did on the initialization state, so we can copy that sequence instead of creating it again. Let us go to the main workflow and go inside the initialization state. Look for the cleanup sequence after the invoke kill process activity. This one, copy the sequence, then go back to the process workflow and paste it here. We will get errors in the sequence because the config argument name here differs from the config name in this workflow. We need to update that name by placing the prefix in, oops, in underscore, and as well on this one to fix the error. Alright, and I will just collapse that. The next step is to navigate to the work items detail page, and let's invoke the system one navigate to work item workflow to do that. So go to the system one folder and drag this one. The workflow has an argument, so click the import argument button, and we need to assign a URL that navigates directly to the work item details page. We can combine the configuration file setting for the work item URL and the work order ID from the transaction item. It might not sound very clear, but let me explain that. Let's open one sample work item in the System 1 application like this, and the page URL contains the work item URL, this one, and the order ID, which is this one. So the work item URL is one of our configuration file settings, this one. And for the work order ID, we can access it from the transaction item variable. The transaction item variable represents each item in the orchestrator queue. So if we view the transactions in the queue and view a detail of one transaction item, it has each item has three data types, the WI ID or the work order ID, the status, and the type. So let's combine those data and assign them to the workflow argument. So here it should be, we just it's a long syntax, so let's give some space here. So let's start with the configuration file setting, and let me copy that. So we need to convert it to string and then concatenate a forward slash, and then concatenate the in transaction item, and to access a specific column in that variable we need to use the specific content and then the column name, and we also need to convert that into string. Hit OK, and let me just verify the URL. Yeah, that should be good. Let's go back to Studio. So after opening the work item details page, the next step is to get the tax ID. So let's invoke the system1 get client details workflow to do that. Click the import argument button, and the workflow has one out argument. Let's create a variable named tax ID and assign it to this argument. After we get the tax ID, let's navigate to the download monthly reports page. So let's invoke the system one navigate to download monthly reports workflow. To do that, click import argument button and assign the configuration setting name for the download monthly report URL. So let's copy that, and here use inconfig and then the config file setting name for the URL. Hit OK after that. And once the monthly report page is open, the next step is downloading all available reports. So let's invoke the system one download monthly reports workflow. To do that, click the import argument button, and here um, assign the tax ID variable for the tax ID argument and input 2021 for the in-year argument, and the report directory path argument, let's assign the configuration setting name for the report directory path, which is this one, and hit OK. So after downloading the tax ID reports, the next step is to merge the reports into one file called a yearly report. So let's invoke the system one merge monthly report. To do that, click import arguments and assign similar values from the previous invoke activity. So here is the tax ID variable for the year input 2021. For the report directory path, should be this one. And for the, we will create the yearly report path variable for the yearly report path argument. So press Ctrl K and type in yearly report path. Hit OK after that. So once we have the yearly report, let's open the upload yearly report page. Let's invoke the system one navigate to upload yearly report workflow. To do that, click import arguments button and assign the configuration file setting name for the upload yearly report URL. So this one, copy it, inconfig and convert it to string. Hit OK. And after opening the upload yearly report page, let's upload the yearly report file. So let's invoke the system one upload yearly report workflow. To do that, click import arguments button. Let's assign again the tax ID variable 2021 for the in-year argument. For the in-yearly report argument, um, we will be using the path.get full path and then the yearly report path variable. So path.get full path is a function that get the absolute path of a given path. So for the out confirmation argument, we will create a variable and name it confirmation ID. Hit OK after that. And remember that the confirmation ID is the value we need to assign in the comment field of the work item. So after getting it, let's update the work item. Let's invoke the system one navigate to work item first. We can copy the same invoke activity we had earlier. So yeah, let's just look for this one, copy and paste it here. It's just a similar invoke activity that we need, as well as the import argument value. Next, after that, let's invoke the system1 update work items workflow to update the comment and the status. So click the import argument button and assign the confirmation ID variable in the comment argument. And for the status, let's use the configuration file setting name for the status. This one, copy and use the inconfig and convert that into string. So let's quickly review the workflow before we test it. Uh, First is the cleanup sequence, then navigate to work item details page, get client details, navigate to download monthly report page, and download monthly reports, then merge monthly reports, navigate to upload yearly report, and upload yearly report, navigate to work item details page again, and update the work item. So before finally testing the project, ensure that the configuration file is closed. So save that. And the application is also log out and close. So here, log out from here and close this page. We can also validate the project to ensure no error in any part of the project. So let's close this process workflow, but make sure to save your updates. Like this one, do you want to save? Yes. So in the main workflow, uh, click Analyze File and select Validate Project. It's a good practice to validate the project again to ensure no error in any part of it. So now let's click Run to test our project. I want to set your expectation that the testing part of this project will take some time. It will depend on the number of work items in the orchestrator queue and the available reports per item. It is now processing my first tax ID and now saving the first available report. And again, based on our flow logic, as long as the report is available, it will be saved to a dedicated report folder named by the tax ID. So let's see if this first item will get completed. Now it navigates to upload yearly report page to upload the yearly report file. And it shows the confirmation ID. Now it will be updating the work order for the work item using the confirmation ID as the comment and set the status to completed. And now it will be processing the second tax ID. So the first item completed indicates that the project flow and workflows are working correctly. I will fast forward the video for the following work items and stop it if I encounter any issue or error so I can show you how to fix them. Alright, so after processing all the work items and before you upload your project to UiPath Academy, let us first check the orchestrator and the System 1 application. So in my test run, I encountered some problem. So just let the bot do the retry, do not interfere if you see that it encounter an error. Because remember, we set the work queue setting to have a retry of maximum of 2 so that if it fails to process the item in the first time, there's still a chance that it will be completed on the second attempt. So yep, let's check now our orchestrator to see the status of our work items. So navigate to cloud.uipath.com or platform.uipath.com. I will also open the System 1 application and log in. So here in the orchestrator, go to the orchestrator tab. So we need to check if all the expectation is that all the transaction in the queue should have a status of successful or retried. So there's most of the time there's a delay in the result here. So it's better to check the transaction status. So we can see there that there's still one in progress item, but let's verify that in the transactions. All right, so I can see that there is no more in progress items in here. So some of the items are successful, and you can see that there are items with the status of pre-tried. It doesn't mean it failed, because if we check that, like this one, we can see that it was tried twice. Well, actually, it was processed 3 times. It failed on the first 2 attempts, but it was successful on the third time. So this item is still count as successful, similar to this one. And let's see the other retry here. There's a lot of retry item here. But as long as you can see that the last status is successful, then that should be fine. So that's the purpose of our retry setting in the orchestrator queue. Again, if during the run or during the test, if you see any error, please do not interfere with the project. That might uh, that might result to an unexpected behavior of the project as well as here in the orchestrator that might get affected. So now let's check our Acme application. Here we need to check if all the WI4 items in here are with the completed status. So here in the first page, I have two and the status is completed. I will just check some random pages. If it has a generate yearly report item, that should have a a completed status. And now in the last page, all right, it seems that it's good. So if you have the same result, like all your work items are successful, or with the status of retried here in the orchestrator, and you verify that all your generate yearly report items have the status of completed, you can now proceed on uploading your project to the UiPath Academy. And if you follow everything correctly, you should be able, I guarantee that you will get a 100% score for that exercise. All right, and this concludes our Generate Yearly Report Performer project. I hope that it was able to help you and that you enjoyed each of the video. So please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. See you in the next UiPath video.